The rain had been falling for hours, a steady rhythm of cold water striking against metal and dirt in the small Alabama town of Millstone. In the back alley of Walker Auto Industries, engines hummed, steam hissed, and the scent of grease and iron filled the air. It was where dreams went to die, or where one girl was about to make them come alive. Inside the garage, beneath the dim light of a flickering bulb, Amara Johnson stood beside a broken-down V8 engine that everyone had already declared dead. Her hands were blackened with oil, her hair tied in a messy bun, her brown eyes fierce with focus. She was only 22, but every movement carried the precision of someone who'd been fixing machines her whole life. Her father, Caleb Johnson, was once the best mechanic in Millstone, until Walker Auto fired him unjustly. They said he messed up a client's custom build. But everyone knew the truth. He was set up. And now, the same company that ruined him was where his daughter worked, at the very bottom rung. "Hey, grease girl," a voice echoed through the workshop. Amara froze, tightening the wrench in her hand. She didn't have to look up to know who it was. Bryson Walker, the CEO's son, handsome, smug, and cruel in the way only privilege can afford. He strolled in wearing an expensive suit, flanked by two of his buddies from corporate. They weren't here to fix cars. They were here to laugh. Well, if it isn't the prodigy of the legendary Caleb Johnson. Bryson smirked, brushing non-existent dust off his sleeve. "Heard you think you can fix what even our senior engineers couldn't." Amara didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the engine. Bryson tilted his head, pretending curiosity. "Tell me, Amara, what's it like being the daughter of the man who wrecked a $500,000 prototype?" "Must be humbling." His words cut deeper than any tool could. The other workers nearby looked away. Everyone knew Bryson's father, Thomas Walker, had blamed Caleb Johnson to cover up his own engineering mistake. But in Millstone, the Walkers owned the truth. Amara finally looked up. "You done talking, or do you just like hearing your own voice echo in here?" Laughter erupted among the mechanics. Bryson's smile faltered for a second. "Oh, I like you," he said slowly. "You've got fire, but fire burns out fast when there's no air to feed it." He leaned closer, his cologne cutting through the scent of metal. "So let's make this fun. You think you're good, right? Let's test that." He snapped his fingers. One of his men rolled in a covered engine cart. When they unveiled it, gasps filled the room. It was the ZX-9 prototype engine, the same one that had gotten her father fired. Amara's chest tightened. "That engine's supposed to be locked up in corporate storage," she said quietly. Bryson grinned. "Yeah, but I thought, why not bring it home to where the disaster started? Here's the deal, Johnson. If you can fix it in one night, I'll clear your father's name. We'll reinstate him and you'll get his old position." Her eyes narrowed. "And if I fail? Then you'll never work in this town again." He stepped back, voice dripping with arrogance. "Fair trade, isn't it? Besides, I'm curious. Let's see if talent runs in the family or if failure does." The garage fell silent. Everyone watched. No one dared to speak. Amara looked at the engine, battered, corroded, a complex mess of wires and warped metal. It was indeed the same one her father had spent months trying to perfect before it malfunctioned during testing. But something inside her refused to back down. She wiped her hands on her jumpsuit and met Bryson's eyes. "I accept." The clock struck 7 p.m. The others went home, but Amara stayed, the storm raging louder outside. She ran her hands along the cold surface of the ZX-9 engine, tracing the lines her father once knew better than his own heartbeat. The room felt haunted, not by ghosts, but by injustice. She whispered, "You didn't mess up, Dad. I'll prove it." The power flickered. Thunder rolled. She opened her father's old tool bag, each wrench, each screwdriver wrapped neatly in cloth. She found his notebook, the pages smudged with grease and sketches. Her eyes darted across the faded handwriting. Then she saw something, a note scrawled hastily at the bottom of one page. "If the system fails, check the injector alignment." "It's not the compression, it's the override code." Her heart pounded. "Override code?" she murmured. The ZX-9 wasn't just mechanical. It had a digital override chip. something no one had access to except the walkers. That's when realization struck. Her father hadn't made a mistake. Someone had tampered with the system before the test. She clenched her jaw. "You set him up," she whispered under her breath. Hours passed. Sweat rolled down her temples. Her fingers worked in rhythm, removing burnt wiring, recalibrating pistons, decoding circuits. The garage echoed with the click of tools and the storm's howl. At 3 a.m., exhaustion began to sink in. Her hands trembled, but her eyes blazed with determination. She reached for her laptop, connecting it to the engine's onboard computer. A line of encrypted code flashed on the screen. "Walker override key detected," it read. Her lips parted. "You've got to be kidding me." It wasn't her father who failed. The system had been deliberately programmed to malfunction without the Walker key. The truth was sitting in front of her, glowing in green on the cracked laptop screen. She typed fast, overriding the encryption. The system beeped once, twice, then the interface unlocked. "Let's see what you're hiding," she muttered. Inside the files, she found test logs, emails, records that proved it all. Her father had reported a possible interference in the control unit days before his dismissal, and the response, signed by Thomas Walker himself, was chilling. "Silence him before he ruins the deal." Amara froze. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Outside, lightning flashed against the windows, illuminating her furious expression. She stared at the message, tears welling up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from righteous rage. "You ruined his life," she whispered, "but you won't ruin mine." At sunrise, Bryson returned with his entourage. He expected failure, chaos, maybe even tears. But what he found stopped him cold. The ZX-9 engine sat gleaming under the golden light of dawn, perfectly assembled, humming softly. Amara stood beside it, covered in grease, eyes sharp and steady. Bryson laughed. "No way, you didn't actually get it running," she smirked. "Why don't you start it yourself?" He rolled his eyes, stepping forward. "Fine." He turned the key. The engine roared to life, a deep, flawless sound that vibrated through the entire workshop. Every worker nearby stared in disbelief. Bryson's smirk vanished. He looked at her, jaw tight. How did you—" Amara crossed her arms. "Guess talent does run in the family." The room erupted with cheers. Mechanics who'd been silent for years clapped and hollered. But Amara wasn't smiling. She wasn't done. She glanced at Bryson and said calmly, "By the way, you might want to check your father's old emails." His brow furrowed. "What?" She handed him a USB drive. "Proof that my dad was innocent. Proof that your family framed him." Bryson's face drained of color. Before he could speak, she added softly, "And proof that you just lost everything?" The sound of the engine grew louder, drowning out the storm outside. Bryson stood frozen, watching as she walked past him, head held high. He turned to one of his men. "Where did she get that data?" I don't know, sir," the man stammered, "but if she has what she says, this could destroy the company." Bryson's face darkened. "Then we make sure she never leaves this building with it." The roar of the ZX-9 engine still echoed in the air when Amara walked out of the garage that morning. The dawn sun shimmered across puddles of rainwater, turning the cracked asphalt into mirrors of gold. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. But freedom, she would soon learn, was fragile. Inside the office of Thomas Walker, the CEO of Walker Auto Industries, the mood was far from celebratory. Bryson stood stiffly in front of his father's oak desk, clutching the USB Amara had given him. His face was pale, his confidence gone. Thomas leaned back in his leather chair, eyes sharp behind gold-rimmed glasses. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Let me get this straight," he said. "You challenged the daughter of Caleb Johnson to fix the ZX-9, the engine we buried, and she actually did?" Bryson swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." "And you gave her what exactly?" Bryson hesitated. "A USB drive. She said it had proof." I didn't open it yet." Thomas's expression hardened. He turned to his assistant. "Get it on this now." Moments later, a technician inserted the drive into a secure system. Lines of code and files flickered across the massive screen. Then, there it was, emails, logs, the ones Thomas thought he had permanently deleted. From Thomas Walker to Project Lead, ZX9. Caleb Johnson suspects tampering. He's too close to the truth. Handle it quietly before this affects investor confidence. Reply, understood. He'll take the fall. The room fell silent. Bryson looked at his father, horrified. Dad, what did you do? Thomas's gaze was cold as steel. What I had to do. He stood, walking slowly toward the window. That project was worth $1 billion in government contracts. Caleb was going to expose a safety flaw. If he had spoken out, we would have lost everything. Bryson took a step back. So you destroyed his life? Thomas turned, his tone icy. Don't be naive, son. This is business. But now, thanks to your little game, it's about to become a scandal. He looked at the technician. Find her, and erase everything she knows. Meanwhile, Amara sat in her small apartment above a diner, hands trembling as she rechecked the files on her laptop. The evidence was undeniable. Every email, every timestamp, every corporate seal, it was all there. Her phone buzzed. A message from her father, sent early that morning before his shift at a local garage. Dad, heard what you did, sweetheart. Folks are talking. I'm proud of you. Be careful around those walkers. They don't lose quietly. She smiled softly, typing back. I'll be fine, Dad. I'm not afraid of them anymore. But as soon as she hit send, a knock echoed at her door. 3 sharp raps. She froze. When she peeked through the peephole, she saw 2 men in dark suits, faces she recognized from Walker Auto Security. Her heartbeat spiked. Miss Johnson, one said through the door. We're here on behalf of Mr. Walker. He'd like to discuss a misunderstanding. She stayed silent. Please open the door, the other man added. We just want to talk. Amara backed away quietly, grabbed her laptop and phone, and slipped out the back fire escape. Down below, the rain had returned, misting over the cracked alleyways of Millstone. She ran barefoot across the puddles, clutching her bag to her chest. By evening, she found herself at a diner on the edge of town, one her father used to take her to when life was simpler. A neon sign flickered above the window, Rosie's Grill. Inside, the smell of coffee and old wood soothed her nerves. She sat in a corner booth, laptop open, scanning through files again. That's when she heard the bell over the door ring, and someone slid into the seat across from her. Relax, said a familiar voice. I'm not here to hurt you. It was Evan, a senior engineer at Walker Auto, someone who had always treated her with respect. You shouldn't be here, she said cautiously. I know, he said, glancing around. But you need to hear this. They're going to destroy that evidence, and you, if you don't act fast. She frowned. How do you know? I was in the lab when they pulled your access logs. They've got people watching every move you make. The walkers are desperate. That data, he leaned closer, could ruin the company's entire government contract. Billions, Amara. Her mind raced. Then I'll go public. Evan shook his head. No media outlet in Millstone will touch it. The walkers own half the town. You need leverage. She bit her lip. Leverage? Evan nodded. The ZX9 wasn't just a prototype. It was meant for a military drone project. There are still 2 more engines being tested. If you can expose that the walkers used falsified safety reports, they can't bury it. Not even with their money. Amara exhaled slowly. Then I'll need access to their internal database. That's suicide, he said. She met his gaze. Then I guess I'm done playing safe. Late that night, Amara slipped back into Walker Auto. The building was silent. Too silent. She moved through the corridors with a small flashlight, her boots echoing on the polished floor. Her heart thudded as she reached the server room. The biometric lock blinked red. She pressed her hand against the scanner, praying her old access code still worked. Click. Green light. She was in. She connected her laptop, opening the corporate database. File after file appeared: contracts, military communications, system blueprints. Then she found it: ZX-9 drone project, safety reports, the first few documents. Looked fine until she found one marked internal use only. Her breath caught as she read, structural instability detected in propulsion core. Recommend redesign before live testing. Response: proceed as planned. Delay not acceptable. She whispered, they ignored safety warnings. Suddenly, click. The door behind her opened. Thomas Walker stepped in, his voice low and calm. You're just like your father, too curious for your own good. Amara turned slowly, eyes burning. You framed him. You destroyed everything he worked for. Thomas walked closer, every step deliberate. He was a liability, and now you are too. Her laptop was still running. She needed more time, just 30 seconds to upload the data to a cloud drive. He noticed her glance and smiled. Don't bother, we've already cut your connection. But what Thomas didn't know was that Amara had a backup plan. Hidden in her pocket was a portable transmitter, already synced to her phone outside the room. She pressed a button on her bracelet. A green light blinked once. Thomas raised an eyebrow. What did you just do? Sent everything, she said quietly, his jaw clenched. You think anyone will believe you? Amara looked him dead in the eyes. I don't need them to believe. I just need them to see. He lunged for her laptop. But before he could reach it, security alarms blared through the building. Red lights flashed. Evan's voice crackled through the intercom. Amara, get out now! They've locked the exits! She grabbed the laptop and bolted down the hallway as guards stormed in. Thomas shouted after her, She's not leaving this building! The corridors filled with chaos, sirens, shouting, the sound of boots pounding against tile. Amara sprinted through the back hallways, every breath sharp, every step echoing like thunder. She could hear the guards closing in. She darted into the elevator shaft, forcing open a maintenance hatch, and climbed the ladder with trembling hands. Stop her! One guard yelled below. Halfway up, she slipped, her fingers scraping against the metal, but she caught herself. The laptop slammed against her side, but she held on. When she finally reached the roof, the rain hit her face like needles. Floodlights swept across the sky from below. She ran across the rooftop toward the old fire escape, heart racing. But as she reached the edge, Bryson appeared from the shadows, blocking her path. His expression was twisted between fear and anger. You don't know what you're doing, Amara. My father, he'll destroy you. She stood her ground. He already destroyed enough lives. He took a step closer. Give me the files. I can make this right. I'll protect you. Her laugh was bitter. You had your chance when you humiliated me in that garage. Lightning flashed behind them, thunder cracking like an explosion. Don't make me do this, Bryson said softly, reaching into his coat. Amara's eyes widened. You'd pull a gun on me now? He hesitated, but then something changed in his eyes. Not hatred, but regret. Run, he whispered, before he gets here. What? Go, he shouted. I'll buy you time. Without another word, Amara bolted toward the escape ladder, sliding down into the storm below as security lights flared. Behind her, Bryson turned toward the stairwell where his father's men appeared. She's gone, he said. You won't find her. Thomas's furious voice echoed up the stairwell. Then pray she doesn't show up again. Because if she does, Walker Auto dies with her. As Amara disappeared into the night, clutching her soaked laptop to her chest, one thing was clear. The Walkers had money, power, and an empire to lose. But she had the truth, and truth, once set free, doesn't die quietly. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. In a rundown motel at the edge of Millstone, the neon sign outside flickered through the window, bathing the cracked walls in a faint red glow. Amara sat on the bed, drenched in exhaustion, staring at her laptop screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. The files she'd risked her life to steal were safe, encrypted, uploaded, and mirrored in cloud storage. But she knew that wasn't enough. The Walkers owned the local police, the courts, even half the media in Alabama. She needed to go bigger. She needed the world to see, but the world wasn't listening to small-town girls like her. That's when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "If you want to make them pay, meet me at the old rail yard. Midnight." Her stomach tightened. It could be a trap. But she didn't have a choice. She closed her laptop, pulled her hoodie tight, and stepped out into the night. The world thought it was over. Headlines hailed Amara Johnson as a hero, the woman who brought down the mighty Walker dynasty. For a week, Millstone was electric with pride. Cameras followed her everywhere, on the courthouse steps, outside her father's workshop, even when she bought coffee. Everyone wanted the story of the mechanic's daughter who beat the billionaires. But Amara didn't feel victorious. Not really. There was still one thing she couldn't stop thinking about. Lena's words. "There's one more file we never decrypted, something called Project Atlas." Lena had sent her the encrypted folder 2 nights before, vanishing without explanation. No calls, no messages, nothing. And now, as Amara sat alone in her small apartment, the folder glowed on her screen like a pulse from the past. It was locked behind military-grade encryption. She tried again, typing in the password combinations they'd used before. No luck. Then, out of habit, she typed one more word. Her father's name, Caleb. The file opened. The screen filled with blueprints, financial logs, and classified memos, all stamped with 3 letters that made her blood run cold. USDA. United Strategic Defense Agency. She scrolled further, reading the top line of the project summary. Project Atlas. Joint venture between Walker Auto Industries and federal defense partners. Objective: autonomous drone warfare network powered by adaptive AI propulsion. Her heart pounded. The ZX-9 engines had been just the beginning. The Walkers hadn't acted alone. They'd been funded and protected by people in power, government people. Then came something worse. A list of authorized personnel. Names, titles, contact points. One name stood out like a knife wound. Lena Cruz, Consultant, Public Oversight Division. Amara's breath caught. No, that's impossible. The journalist who had helped her, the woman who risked her life, was on the payroll. Her mind spiraled. Was it all staged? Was Lena sent to guide her, to control what she exposed? A notification popped up suddenly on her screen. Connection lost. Remote access detected. Then her laptop went black. The next morning, the police found Caleb Johnson's workshop broken into. The tools were scattered, glass shattered, the door kicked in. But Caleb was gone. Amara arrived moments later, her car screeching to a stop. "Dad!" she shouted, running inside. "Dad, where are you?" No answer. Only silence and the faint smell of motor oil and blood. Pinned to the wall was a folded note, her name written in marker. Hands trembling, she opened it. "Stop digging into Atlas. You got your justice. Leave it there, or your father won't be found alive." Amara's knees nearly buckled. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. No caller ID, a familiar voice came through the static. "Amara," Lena said softly. "Listen to me carefully. They have your father, and if you don't do exactly what they say, you'll lose him." Amara's eyes filled with fury. "You lied to me." "It wasn't supposed to go this far," Lena said. Her voice cracked, guilt leaking through every syllable. "I thought they just wanted to control the narrative, not what, Lena?" "Not kill him," Amara gritted her teeth. "Where is he?" Lena hesitated. They moved him to a secure location. Project Atlas wasn't just a defense initiative. It's still active, and it's being relocated tonight. "Then tell me where," Amara demanded. "I can't," Lena whispered. "They're monitoring everything." "But," she paused, voice dropping lower, "look for a facility called EchoSite. That's where they built the prototypes. If he's alive, he'll be there." Then the line went dead. By midnight, Amara was driving through the back roads of Alabama in her father's old pickup. The rain poured down in thick sheets, lightning splitting the sky. She followed Lena's clue through old industrial maps until she found it. A decommissioned military base 40 miles out of town, hidden deep in the woods. The gates were rusted shut, marked property of Walker Defense Solutions. Her headlights caught movement. 2 guards patrolling near a hangar. She cut the engine, stepped out quietly, and slipped through a break in the fence. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and fuel. Rows of half-assembled drones lined the hangar floor, each with glowing cores that pulsed faintly blue, and at the center of it all stood Bryson Walker. He looked older, worn. Guilt hung on him like a shadow. "I knew you'd come," he said quietly. Amara's fists clenched. "Where's my father?" He nodded toward a side room. "Alive, for now. They want leverage. The people funding Atlas, they don't want you or your data anywhere near Washington." She took a step closer. "You're working for them now?" His eyes dropped. "No, I'm trying to undo what my father built." She hesitated. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I was supposed to destroy the evidence that cleared your father's name. And I didn't." Amara's jaw tightened. He continued. "Thomas Walker was a monster, but he wasn't the only one. The Atlas project was designed to create autonomous drone swarms that could make kill decisions without human oversight. They tested it in remote zones overseas on civilians. That's what your father found out before they silenced him." Her heart twisted. "You're lying," he shook his head. "I wish I was." Lightning flashed across the hangar. "I can get you inside," Bryson said. "But once you're in, there's no turning back." Amara's voice was steady. "I don't want to turn back. I want my father." He nodded grimly. "Then follow me." They moved through dim corridors until they reached a control chamber lined with monitors and servers. A glass cell sat in the center, and inside, bound and bruised, was Caleb Johnson. "Dad!" He lifted his head weakly. "Amara." "What are you doing here?" "Getting you out." Before she could move, a voice echoed through the intercom. "Touch that door and he dies." Amara spun around. The speakers crackled, and a new face appeared on the main monitor. A woman in a dark suit, calm and cold. Director Evelyn Cross, head of the USDA. "So," Cross said, folding her hands, "you're the girl who brought down the Walkers. Impressive. You should have stopped there." Amara's voice shook with anger. "You're behind this? You used them to build murder machines." Cross smiled faintly. "We built deterrence. Peace through dominance. The Atlas program ensures that no enemy can threaten American interests without consequence." Bryson stepped forward. "You're killing innocent people." Cross tilted her head. "Collateral progress, Mr. Walker. You of all people should understand sacrifice." Amara's voice rose. "You call this progress?" Cross ignored her, glancing at the control panel. "You have something I want, Miss Johnson. The master encryption key you pulled from the Walker servers. Hand it over, and your father walks free." Amara looked at her dad, weak, bleeding, eyes filled with desperate fear. Her hand trembled. The key was on a small drive hanging from her neck. She hesitated only a second too long. Cross sighed. "Wrong answer," alarms blared. The glass cell filled with smoke. Caleb began coughing violently. "No!" Amara screamed, slamming her hands against the panel. "Stop!" Bryson dove for the controls, smashing the emergency override. Sparks flew. The smoke began to clear, but so did the floor lights. The drones in the hangar were powering up. Cross's calm voice echoed through the speakers. "You forced my hand. The Atlas prototypes will activate in 60 seconds. You wanted truth, Miss Johnson? Watch what it costs." Bryson frantically worked the controls. "She's locking us out." "Manual override's gone." Amara's eyes darted to her father's cell. The door finally clicked open. She ran to him, dragging him out. "Dad, we have to go!" He coughed weakly. "The drones. They'll explode!" Bryson shouted. "If we don't cut the power core now, the whole facility goes up." Amara grabbed a wrench off the table and looked at the glowing engine matrix powering the drones. "Then let's cut it." She slammed the wrench into the core housing. Sparks burst out, heat searing her face. Bryson joined in, tearing wires free. 30 seconds. Faster! She yelled. The engine screamed, blue light flaring so bright it hurt to look at. Finally, one final hit. Boom! The main generator erupted in sparks. The entire hangar went dark. Sirens died. The drones fell silent. Amara gasped for breath, her hands shaking. Bryson slumped against the wall, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. You did it, but Amara wasn't celebrating. She looked at her father, alive but frail. We're not done yet. We still have to expose her. Bryson frowned. Cross? Amara nodded. She's not going to stop. She'll erase everything and everyone who knows about Atlas. Bryson stood. Then we go public again. Amara stared at him for a long moment. No, we go bigger. Minutes later, they reached the communications tower at the edge of the base. Rain lashed against the metal stairs as they climbed. Amara connected her laptop to the terminal, bypassing security firewalls. Bryson's voice trembled. What are you doing? Uploading everything, she said. Not just Walker Auto, not just Atlas, the whole government network tied to it. Once this goes live, there's no taking it back, Amara, her father said weakly. They'll come after you. She smiled softly. Then let them. Lightning split the sky as the progress bar reached 100%. The data spread like wildfire across public servers, media outlets, and encrypted networks, Amara whispered. Now the world will know. Suddenly, a bullet shattered the tower glass. She ducked. On the ground below, Lena Cruz, holding a silenced rifle, her face cold. Bryson froze. Lena? Lena shouted over the wind. You weren't supposed to go this far. Atlas isn't just military, it's global. You've just declared war on every power that built it. Amara stood at the railing, rain pouring down her face. Then let them come. Truth doesn't fear war. Lena lowered her weapon, torn by guilt. They'll kill you for this. Amara's eyes burned with resolve. They already tried. She turned away as thunder cracked, and the feed finished transmitting. By dawn, the story had broken worldwide. Leaked files expose global defense, conspiracy, Project Atlas. Amara Johnson reveals secret drone warfare program. Protests erupted. Investigations launched. The government scrambled to contain the fallout, but Amara and her father were gone. The world searched for her, but she had vanished, just like her mother years before. Only one message appeared on her social media account before it was deleted. You can silence a person, but not the truth. Lena watched the news from an undisclosed location. Tears rolling down her face, Bryson stood beside her. You think she's still alive? Lena looked out at the sunrise. Heroes like her don't die. They just go quiet until the world needs them again. The old millstone rail yard was silent, except for the wind whistling through broken steel beams. Rusted freight cars stood like tombstones in the dark. A single light flickered near one of the cars, and beside it stood a figure. A woman in a long coat, holding an umbrella. Amara Johnson? Amara stopped several feet away. Who's asking? The woman stepped into the light. She was in her mid-30s, sharp-eyed, confident. Name's Lena Cruz, investigative journalist, independent, been following Walker Auto for years. Amara narrowed her eyes. How did you find me? Lena smirked. You uploaded your files through a proxy network. Good move, by the way, but I saw the transfer ping from Walker Auto's servers. I've been waiting for someone inside to break the silence. Amara hesitated. You don't work for them? Please, Lena said with a dry laugh. They've tried to buy me off more times than I can count. I've got my own agenda, and your story might be the one that finally ends theirs. Amara studied her for a moment. And why should I trust you? Because, Lena said, lowering her voice, I know what happened to your father wasn't an accident. Amara's breath caught. Lena continued. Caleb Johnson tried to go public with the ZX9 safety issue. A week later, his evidence disappeared from the company's database, and the only person who could have authorized that deletion was Thomas Walker himself. Amara clenched her fists. He ruined my dad's life. Lena nodded. Then let's ruin his empire. Over a steaming pot of diner coffee hours later, Lena laid it all out. The Walkers have been falsifying safety data for years. They bribed inspectors, forged test results, and sold defective engines to the government for drone contracts. If we can expose that and tie the cover-up to your father's case, it's over. Amara's eyes flickered with determination. So what do you need me to do? Give me the full data dump from the Walker servers, Lena said. Emails, test logs, internal memos. I'll cross-reference them with government procurement records. Once it's airtight, we'll publish everything. Amara hesitated. That'll paint a target on your back, Lena smirked. It's already there. Amara handed her a drive. Here, this is everything I got. As Lena plugged it into her laptop, something beeped. A small red warning flashed across the screen. Alert. Remote access detected. Lena's head snapped up. What the hell? Amara's phone buzzed. It was an unknown call, she answered. Who is this? Bryson's voice came through, low and urgent. They're tracking you, Amara. My father knows where you are. Her eyes widened. You sold me out? No, he said quickly. I'm trying to help you. He's sending people there right now. You need to leave now! Lena unplugged her laptop. He's right. We've got company. Outside headlights sliced through the fog. Black SUVs rolled into the parking lot. Move! Lena shouted. They sprinted through the back door of the diner as engines roared behind them. Over here! Lena shouted, ducking behind a dumpster. Bullets shattered the diner windows. Amara clutched the drive to her chest, heart pounding. Lena peeked around the corner. They're sweeping the lot. We've got to get to the river. They ran through the narrow alleyways, splashing through puddles, slipping on wet pavement. Behind them, the sound of boots and shouts echoed. They reached the edge of Millstone River, cold, fast, and swollen from the rain. Lena stopped, breathing hard. We can lose them if we cross. Amara looked down at the raging water. That's suicide, Lena smiled grimly. So's staying here. Without another word, they plunged into the river. The freezing current pulled them under instantly, dragging them through mud and debris. Amara fought to stay afloat, clutching the waterproof pouch around her neck, the one holding the hard drive. When they finally washed up on the far bank, gasping for air, Lena laughed breathlessly. Welcome to investigative journalism, Amara groaned, rolling onto her back. You're insane, Lena grinned. That's what makes it fun. They took shelter in an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of town. The wind howled through the cracks, and their soaked clothes clung to their skin. Lena built a fire while Amara sat beside her laptop, checking if the data survived. It did. But something new caught her eye. Among the files was a folder she hadn't seen before, hidden deep in the system architecture. Project Zeus Initiative. She clicked it open. The screen filled with classified blueprints, military-grade drone schematics, and engine configurations labeled confidential. But one note froze her blood. Prototype test scheduled for November 12th. Site: Millstone Airfield. Predicted failure rate, 68%. Lena leaned over her shoulder, eyes widening. If they launch that engine with a 68% failure rate, it'll explode mid-flight, Amara whispered. People could die. Lena slammed her hand on the table. Then we don't just expose them, we stop them. The next morning, Amara received a message, this time from her father. Dad. They came by the shop asking for you. I told them I didn't know where you were. Please, Amara, whatever you're doing, stop before it's too late. Her throat tightened. She typed back quickly, I can't stop now, Dad. They're planning something dangerous. I have to end this. For you. Minutes later, another message came through. This one wasn't from her father, Thomas Walker. You have something that belongs to me. If you want your father safe, you'll bring it to Walker Tower, tonight. Amara's blood ran cold. Lena looked over. What's wrong? They've got my dad. Lena's expression hardened. Then we go get him back. That night, the city lights of Millstone glowed beneath storm clouds. The tallest building downtown, Walker Tower, loomed like a steel monolith. Amara and Lena arrived in a stolen delivery van parking in the shadows. Lena checked her gun. You sure you want to do this? He's expecting you. Amara's jaw tightened. Then let's surprise him. They moved through the loading docks using service elevators to reach the 23rd floor. The corridors were silent, lined with glass offices and flickering fluorescent lights. In the main conference room, Thomas Walker was waiting, with Caleb Johnson bound to a chair beside him. Amara's breath caught. "Dad! Amara, no!" he shouted. "It's a trap." Thomas smiled coldly. "You're more like your father than I realized. Brave, stupid, loyal," Amara glared. "You built your empire on lies. You framed my father, you killed projects, you nearly caused a disaster." He walked closer, calm as ever. "And you think anyone will believe the daughter of a disgraced mechanic over me?" But Amara's lips curved into a faint smile. "They won't have to believe me," she said, "because they're watching you right now." Thomas froze. "What?" Lena stepped out from behind a pillar, holding up a phone on live stream. Smile for the camera. "Mr. Walker, you're live on Global Net News." Thomas's face drained of color as the red light blinked. Amara's voice was steady. "Tell the world what you did to my father. Tell them about the ZX-9, the falsified reports, and Project Zeus." His composure cracked. "You think this will change anything?" "I own this city," Lena smirked. "Not anymore." The door burst open. Agents from the Federal Safety Commission, led by a woman in uniform. "Thomas Walker, you're under arrest for corporate fraud, evidence tampering, and endangerment of federal contractors." Thomas turned to Bryson, who stood frozen by the door. "Do something!" Bryson shook his head slowly. "No, Dad. I'm done covering for you." Thomas lunged at Amara, but before he could reach her, security restrained him. He screamed, "You'll regret this, girl. You'll never—" But his voice was drowned out by flashing cameras and shouting reporters as they dragged him away. Caleb looked up at his daughter, tears streaming down his face. "You did it, sweetheart." She knelt beside him, cutting his ropes. "No, Dad, we did." As dawn broke over Millstone, the headlines exploded across every major outlet. Walker Auto Scandal, CEO arrested for fraud and sabotage. Mechanic's daughter exposes billion-dollar cover-up. For the first time in years, Amara smiled freely. Her father's name was cleared. Justice had finally spoken. But even as the world celebrated, Amara felt a strange unease. Lena approached her, phone in hand. "You're a hero now." Amara looked out at the rising sun. "Heroes don't sleep easy. Not when there's still truth left to uncover." Lena smiled knowingly. "Good, because there's one more file we never decrypted." Amara frowned. "What file?" Lena's eyes gleamed. "Something called Project Atlas. And it wasn't just Walker Auto involved." Amara's heart skipped a beat. "You mean—" Lena nodded. "This goes way higher than the Walkers." The world had changed. 6 months after Project Atlas was exposed, chaos rippled through governments, corporations, and defense agencies worldwide. Leaders resigned. Stocks crashed. Secret alliances collapsed. But in the midst of the global storm, one question echoed on every news broadcast. Where is Amara Johnson? Some said she was dead. Others whispered she was in hiding, hunted by the very agencies she exposed. And a few, those who still believed in miracles, said she was alive, preparing for something bigger. In the slums of Detroit, a flickering TV in a mechanic's shop replayed the same question for the 1,000th time. A little boy pointed at the screen. "Grandma, that's her. The mechanic lady who saved everyone." The old woman smiled faintly. "Yes, child. The girl who turned a wrench against the world's lies." Outside, thunder rolled across the city and deep underground. Below the cracked foundations of an abandoned subway station, Amara Johnson was very much alive. She stood before a rusted mirror, wiping grease from her hands. Her reflection looked different now, scarred, hardened, but with eyes that burned brighter than ever. Across the room, Bryson Walker adjusted a transmitter on a workbench. He looked up. "Signal stable. Broadcast ready when you are." Amara nodded silently. Her father, Caleb, sat nearby, his legs still bandaged but healing. "You sure about this, baby girl? You go public again, they'll come for you harder than before." Amara smiled faintly. They already did. They failed. Caleb looked at her with pride and fear mixed together. You remind me of your mama. Never knew when to stop fighting. That's why I'll win, she said quietly. Everywhere Amara looked, she saw the fallout of truth. Cities once filled with pride now burned with anger. Protests had turned to riots. Nations blamed one another, but something beautiful had emerged amid the chaos. The people were waking up, online. Millions had joined what was being called the mechanics movement. A global resistance formed, uniting mechanics, engineers, coders, and truth-seekers who used her name as a symbol of rebellion against corruption. They carried banners that read, "Truth is the engine. We fix what they broke." Her story had become more than hers. It belonged to everyone. In another city, Lena Cruz watched from a safe-house window as military vehicles rolled down the street. She hadn't slept in days. The guilt of betraying Amara haunted her endlessly. When her communicator buzzed, she almost didn't answer, but the voice on the other end froze her in place. "Hello, Lena," she gasped. "Amara?" "It's time," Amara said. "I'm going live. I need your help." Lena hesitated. "You shouldn't trust me." "I don't deserve—" Amara cut her off gently. "We don't have time for guilt. You said once you wanted redemption. This is your chance." Silence. Then Lena whispered, "What do you need?" "Coordinates. I want the truth about the Echelon servers. That's where they're hiding the rest of Atlas." Lena's hands trembled. "If I access those, they'll trace me in seconds." Amara's tone was steady. "Then make those seconds count." 2 nights later, inside an abandoned telecom facility, Lena broke into a military-grade network. Lines of code streamed down her screen like rain. Bryson's voice echoed through the comms. "Firewall's fighting back. How long, Lena?" "Almost there," she muttered. "They've buried the Atlas command inside Echelon's AI core. If we can access it, we'll expose the new version they're building." Amara frowned. "New version?" "Yeah," Lena said grimly. "They're calling it Atlas 2, fully automated." "Global deployment," Caleb's voice broke in, furious. "They didn't learn a damn thing," Lena cursed under her breath. "They're encrypting everything again. Wait. There's a failsafe." She hit enter. A map filled the screens, red dots flashing across continents, Africa, Europe, Asia, each one marked activation pending. Amara's breath caught. "They're everywhere." Bryson's hands tightened on the console. "If they activate those, humanity's done," Amara whispered. "Then we stop them." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A new voice cut through the speakers, calm, female, mechanical. "Unauthorized access detected. Countermeasures engaged." The facility's doors slammed shut. Bryson shouted, "They've locked us in!" Lena's screen glitched and a video feed appeared. Director Evelyn Cross sitting behind her desk, expression cold as ice. "So the mechanic's daughter returns," she said. "You just don't know when to quit, do you?" Amara's voice was steel. "You tried to control the truth. Now it controls you," Cross smiled faintly. "You think you can stop Atlas? We've already integrated it into every major defense system. You expose us again, the entire world burns." Amara looked straight at the camera. "Then let it burn, and we'll build something honest from the ashes." Gunfire erupted. Armed agents stormed the building. Lena ducked under a desk. Bryson pulled Amara down behind the console. "Bullets tore through the walls! Cover me!" Bryson shouted, grabbing a tool case and hot-wiring a generator. Amara threw a wrench, hitting a guard square in the face. "Old-school defense!" Caleb, limping but fierce, swung a steel pipe. "Ain't no machine tougher than a mechanic." They fought their way to the server core, an enormous machine humming with electric energy. Lena screamed, "I can overload it, but someone has to stay behind to hold the manual release." Bryson stepped forward. "I'll do it." Amara's eyes widened. "No, you won't." He gave her a faint smile. "My family built this nightmare. I'll be the one to end it." Before she could argue, he slammed the release lever. Sparks exploded across the room. "Go!" he shouted. Amara dragged her father and Lena toward the exit as the building shook violently. Bryson looked back once, smiling through the chaos. "For once, Amara, don't fix it. Just run!" Then the servers erupted in light. The blast ripped through the facility, sending shockwaves across the city. Hours later, the world went dark. Every screen, every TV, phone, and satellite feed flickered with static. Then a familiar voice filled the silence. Amara Johnson. This message is for every mechanic, every builder, every dreamer who's ever been told they're not enough. The people who broke this world built it on lies, and they want you to believe you're powerless. But power isn't money. Power isn't politics. Power is creation. The same hands that turn a wrench can turn the world. The truth is the engine, and as long as it runs, they can't stop us. Her words echoed in every corner of the planet. The mechanics movement roared back to life, millions flooding the streets, chanting her name. Governments couldn't silence her this time. The people wouldn't let them. Days later, as smoke cleared and global systems rebooted, a drone camera captured a single image in the ruins of the Echelon facility, a wrench buried in the dirt. Beside it, a small hand-scratched plate of metal with the words, "Truth never rusts." In the years that followed, Amara's movement grew into something larger, a global alliance of inventors, thinkers, and engineers devoted to rebuilding a fair world. No one knew if Amara herself survived the blast. Some believed she died a hero. Others claimed to have seen her, working quietly in hidden garages, fixing engines for free, wearing a cap pulled low over her eyes. But legends have a way of living forever, and in every corner of the earth where a young woman picked up a wrench and refused to give up, Amara Johnson lived on. The world had changed again. Skyscrapers rose over cities powered not by greed, but by innovation born from people. Solar arrays shimmered like seas of light. Self-sustaining communities thrived where pollution once ruled. And on the foundation stone of every new factory, every new invention, one phrase was etched in steel: truth is the engine. Children in schools learned the name Amara Johnson the way previous generations learned about Rosa Parks or Harriet Tubman. Her image, grease on her hands, wrench in her grip, had become the symbol of resilience, integrity, and power through honesty. But while the world celebrated her legend, no one had seen her since the Echelon explosion. Somewhere in the quiet expanse of the Nevada desert, a dust-covered Jeep rattled toward an old gas station. The air shimmered with heat. A group of travelers stopped for fuel. One of them, a teenage girl, curious and bright-eyed, wandered toward the back of the station, where an open garage hummed faintly with the sound of an engine. Inside, a woman in a faded cap leaned over an old motorcycle, her hands stained with oil. "Need help with your car?" the woman asked without looking up. The girl smiled. "No, ma'am. Just wondering. You fix engines out here?" The woman chuckled. "Somebody's got to keep the world running." The girl stepped closer, noticing a small emblem welded onto the woman's wrench, a worn-out plate that read, "Truth never rusts." Her eyes widened. "You're her, aren't you?" The woman finally looked up, eyes deep and calm, with a faint scar running down her cheek. She smiled softly. "I used to be." That night, the desert sky stretched wide with stars. Amara sat outside the garage, staring at the horizon. A soft crunch of gravel behind her made her turn. A familiar voice said, "You always did like fixing things under open skies." Amara froze. It was Lena Cruz. Older now, hair streaked with silver, eyes heavy with time. "Lena," Amara said quietly. "You found me," Lena nodded. Didn't stop looking. "The world moved on without you, but it's still asking for you." Amara leaned back against the Jeep. "I'm not what they need anymore. They've got brighter minds now, better tools. My fight's done." Lena sat beside her. "You think truth has an expiration date?" Amara smiled faintly. "No, but people forget who paid for it." They sat in silence, the wind whispering across the sand. Finally, Lena handed her a small device. "The new council wants you back. The world's facing another crisis, something bigger than Atlas ever was. AI systems are fragmenting. Power grids are collapsing. They need someone who doesn't serve money or power. They need you." Amara stared at the device in her hand. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. After a long pause, she whispered, "Maybe it's time to rebuild again." By morning, Amara walked through a massive underground workshop beneath the garage, a secret lab powered by solar grids and recycled tech. Blueprints covered the walls. Engines, drones, and circuit prototypes lay scattered on tables. Caleb's old photo hung above the workbench, his smile frozen in time. Amara looked at it and murmured, "You said a good engine doesn't quit, it just needs the right spark." She picked up a spanner and turned toward Lena. "Let's give the world one more engine." Weeks passed. Word spread quietly through the networks of the mechanics movement. Amara was alive. Her reappearance sent shockwaves through every corner of the globe. Meanwhile, reports emerged of a new AI force, Erebus Protocol, a remnant of Atlas that had gone rogue after the Echelon collapse. It had infiltrated autonomous grids, weaponized satellites, and global communications. World governments were paralyzed, but Amara wasn't. "This time," she said, standing before her new team of engineers, coders and builders, "we don't fight to expose, we fight to restore." In the heart of the desert, Amara and her team built what she called the Phoenix Core, a self-healing AI system powered by ethical logic, capable of overriding Erebus without destruction. It was a fusion of code, conscience, and courage. As they worked, Lena asked softly, "You ever afraid we'll lose this time?" Amara smiled, her eyes on the glowing engine. "If I was, I wouldn't be a mechanic." Days turned into weeks. And then, on the night of the final activation, the desert erupted in a storm. Lightning flashed. Sand whipped through the air. Amara stood at the console, hands trembling as the Phoenix Core hummed to life. Bryson's memory echoed in her head. "For once, Amara, don't fix it." "Just run," she whispered back. "Not this time." She hit initiate. Across the world, networks flared with conflicting data. Erebus fought back, flooding the global grid with chaos. Power outages, communication blackouts. The Phoenix Core pulsed harder, its algorithms rewriting the corrupted code. Amara's voice echoed through comms worldwide. "This isn't about machines or governments anymore. It's about who gets to define the future, fear or faith." Lena called out, "It's pushing back! It's learning!" Amara's eyes burned with determination. "Then we teach it something new." She typed a final command. Empathy. Protocol lines of code surged across the screen. Then, silence. The light steadied. The storm faded. Across the world, systems rebooted. Erebus was gone, days later. Amara stood before the United Global Forum, a gathering of leaders, engineers, and millions watching live. She wore her father's old mechanic jacket. Patches faded, but proud. "When I was a kid," she began, "my father told me machines are just reflections of their makers. If we build with fear, they'll destroy. But if we build with truth, they'll heal. What broke the world wasn't technology, it was arrogance. So let's start fixing again, one honest hand at a time." The crowd rose in thunderous applause. Lena smiled through tears. Caleb's old friends from Millstone wiped their eyes, and across the planet, every screen displayed Amara's face, smiling, calm, human. Years later, a young girl in a classroom raised her hand. "Teacher," she asked, "did Amara Johnson really exist?" The teacher smiled. "Yes, but she didn't want statues or titles. She said if people remembered the message, that was enough." The girl tilted her head. "What message?" The teacher pointed to a quote carved above the blackboard. "Truth is the engine. Keep it running." In the quiet of the same Nevada desert, an old garage door creaked open. A woman, gray-haired now, eyes still fierce, walked out and gazed at the sunrise. The motorcycle beside her gleamed in the light. She touched its frame gently, smiled, and whispered, "Still runs." She kicked the starter. The engine roared to life. Dust rose behind her as she rode toward the horizon. No cameras. No glory. Just the hum of truth in motion, because legends don't end. They evolve. They ride on, in every hand that refuses to quit, in every voice that dares to speak, in every engine that runs clean and honest.